Thank God. Okay. So now we're going to get into our Superman on film update, folks, because these last few weeks I've been remiss of my duties. I haven't offered you an update of the state of Superman on film. So right now I'm going to give you the big news. There is none. Here we are once again. We are way past a year since there's been any update whatsoever about a Superman film coming to theaters. So what I was thinking was instead of that, today is March 18th, Brett. And that means that today is the anniversary of the last time Superman appeared on film. This is the 1 year anniversary of Zack Snyder's Justice League. So I figure let's just talk about that for a little bit since there's no Superman news to discuss. And back at that point, you and I weren't podcasting together, so I don't even know what you thought of the film. Did you see Zack Snyder's Justice League?
So I did watch Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I forgot like the exact time frame, but it was in the span of like a week or so. I watched it like 3 times. Mainly
3.
Yeah. And not someone who is like obsessed with the previous Zack Snyder films. I like them fine, but I'm not like a diehard with that. I watched it 3 times. I obviously I think if I'm not mistaken, a year ago today, the second I got home from work, I just popped it on. I was like, I gotta watch this.
So let me get this straight. Let me get this straight. 6 hours of WrestleMania is too much for you. But 12 hours of Zack Snyder's Justice League is just right? Is that what you're telling me?
It's just right. It's the spot. So
yeah, go ahead. What did you think?
Remember I watched it. I watched it when I got home. Mm-hmm. I watched all 4 hours of it. I mean, immediately I was like, okay, this is 100% better than the theatrical cut. So I don't know why they scrapped it. It definitely is. It definitively is better.
Yep.
I don't think it's amazing, but it's definitely better than the theatrical cut. So with that, I then watched it again because when I finished it, I was so absolutely just mystified by what I had watched that I was like, it was incredible in this, not necessarily as an incredible film, but there was this something about it, like that it existed. I think I still couldn't wrap my head around it. And like, it was, listen, that movie is 4 hours and it's a lot. It is a lot to absorb. Yeah. It's a lot. It's very dense. I mean, it's a lot of just background and like history and a lot of like monologuing and, something like that at 4 hours had a lot of slow points. Whereas like, for instance, the Batman was 3 hours and I didn't feel like that at all throughout the 3 hours. But for this 4 hours, there are definitely points that drag. So that was like my initial reaction. Then I'm like, I have to watch it again. So I did. And I largely came out feeling the same way, but it was starting to click at me now that I knew what to expect, what like some of the changes were from the theatrical cut. I could really focus more on the film. And then what happened was it was not too long after releasing it, they released a black and chrome version. I think it was called Justice and Gray. Okay. Black and white. And I was like, I got to watch it in black and white. And it was actually a really cool watch. If you haven't done that, I would say check out the black and white version. It's kind of cool. It makes it like feel like you're watching something like ancient. I don't know. I can't explain it. It adds more to like the gods, and myths kind of aspect that Snyder went for with like.
Yeah, I've always been intrigued by that because like Logan did that too, right? James Mangold released a black and white version of Logan, and I want to watch that. Yeah, I hear that put interesting spin on a movie. I want to give that a shot, but I haven't done it yet. So, but ultimately, Zack Snyder's Justice League was a thumbs up for you.
Yeah, I was up on it, but like I said, it just, we know the whole story. I'm not going to rehash the whole thing. At 4 hours, it was very, very long, and it did drag at parts. And I'm sure like had they taken this version and cut it down to like more of a 3-hour movie, it also still would have been superior to what we got in the theatrical cut. But they didn't do it, but now we have it, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I remember actually like loving it. I remember sitting there and going, oh my God, this actually works. This movie's really good. Why didn't they just let the guy do his thing if this is what he was going to do? Listen, it's not necessarily where I would have gone with the characters. It's not necessarily like my ideal Justice League type of story. Right, but for what this is, if we're respecting this storyteller and this particular, avenue he's going down, I'm like, we may as well have just let him do it from the start. Let him go from Man of Steel through BVS. Like, let him do his story, because if that's what he could do with his full powers unleashed, I'm like, wow. Meanwhile, we gimped BVS. We chopped off a half hour from that movie and edited it in a sort of incoherent fashion that even Chris Terrio said that theatrical cut was just a total, misfire. So we gimped BVS. We know the whole story of what happened with the theatrical cut of Justice League. And it's like, at the end of the day, for what? You did all this upheaval and all this, it's been this crazy, slow moving reboot over there at Warner Brothers for the last 6 years. And it's like, but if that's the movie we could have gotten in 2017, what are we doing here? Like,
Yeah,
go
you
ahead.
articulated it so well, because I don't think I did when I was talking about like my experience with the film. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's necessarily where I wanted to see the characters go, and it's not
Yeah.
necessarily Justice League story that I wanted to see. But for what it was good. And listen, I also like, obviously, for someone that had issues with some of the story, choices in Batman vs
Yeah.
Superman. I mean, whatever, this movie had to, for better or for worse, pick up off of those story points. Like I think if you've listened to the Avengers, I'm sure we talked about this. I was like, upset that they rushed the death of Superman and bringing Doomsday in, and also having Batman and Superman fight. Like, I felt like that would have had way more of an impact down the line. But now that they did that, we had to basically do the return of Superman, and it stinks. I would have just rather have had them there from the get go and not spend
Yep.
half the movie without Superman. Like, whatever.
Yeah.
This is
I,
long. We've tread this road before. You know what I mean?
yeah. But like for me, so,
It makes me want to
and
like just go off on a tangent.
trust me, it's a movie that demands tangents, and Lord knows I've had many of them over
The
the years.
movie
Right
is a
here,
tangent.
the movie is well, the movie is actually Zack Snyder's opus. I think it is his masterpiece. I think it's
Oh,
the thing he can hang his hat on and go, all right, I may have my haters, I may have my people who love me, I may have people who think I'm a total hack, but this is the quintessential example of what I could do with all my powers unleashed.
yeah. He
And
made
I think,
choices, he took swings.
yeah.
You know,
And as a Superman fan, I found it so rewarding. The way he handled Superman in that, because that was always a part of my issues with him. Man of Steel and BVS, there was something about those stories and the way he handled Superman that, to me, it came off like somebody who doesn't like Superman making a Superman movie. And that's always how it felt to me. But in this movie, seeing how he brought him back, that scene where they're standing around the table looking at the Superman hologram and the whole, like, and when he
yeah,
finally does come back, it's so majestic, and you got the crazy score and the first flight thing happening again, more like second flight, I guess, this time. Like, just like the reverence for Superman and the way he comes across, aside from the black suit, I wish at some point he would have switched to the red and blue. But listen, aside from the black suit being there the whole time, the way he was portrayed, the way Henry Cavill was directed, the way that whole thing went, I'm like, oh, he does like Superman after all. Maybe I was
absolutely.
wrong. Yeah, like if this is what he was building towards, and I have to eat a lot of my words about how little this guy understands Superman. Although now I'm going to go on a little tangent though, because I part of that perception came from an interview once back in like in '08 when he was doing press for Watchmen. And there was still talk about possibly actually I don't know if it was in '08, whenever Watchmen came out. There was talk about how like there's going to be a Superman reboot and they're trying to find a director. And they asked him, you've done 300 now and you've done Watchmen. Would you have any interest in Superman? And he had some sort of comment about how just kind of like boring and uninteresting he finds him. So I think I carried that with me forever. So that when he got the job for Man of Steel, I was like, do not tell me that they gave my boy to a guy who thinks he's boring. Like, oh, but anyway, Zack
He
Snyder's
doesn't
Justice
think
League.
money is boring. You know.
Yeah, but Zack Snyder's Justice League kind of finally like healed that wound. It finally made me see like, okay, he does see who Kal-El is, and he is treating him with reverence. But then again, where was he going next? See, that's the thing that like I love Zack Snyder's Justice League, But then that whole place they're going next, where he's dark, evil Superman and the nightmare sequence, and there's rumor with Ben Affleck, Bruce Wayne was going to get with Lois, and they were going to have a kid. Like things were going to get real weird later on. But for what we saw in those 4 hours, I was very, very happy. So happy first birthday, Zack Snyder's Justice League. Maybe I'll celebrate this weekend by sitting down and watching that 4-hour epic. Do you think you have another viewing in you?
I could do it again. Yeah, watching in black and white. Do it.
Well, maybe. And I kind of think too. We did a commentary on BVS, right? Although I don't think I ever released it, but maybe I finally will. Part of this, we did a commentary on the theatrical cut of Justice League. We did. It's on the YouTube. We should do a commentary for Zack Snyder's Justice League.
I'm totally into that.
That would be fun.